The Rebels outscored the Wildcats 30-13 over the last three quarters, but a slow start by Austin Simmons again appeared. We bring in the quarterback, John Fourcade, to break it all down.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We bring in John Fourcade to talk about Ole Miss beating Kentucky on Saturday. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen, and please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Check out a second listen as well on the network. Nearly every college or pro team is available. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. Let's bring in the quarterback. John, my question to you would be, I thought that the last three quarters of the game was fairly dominant by Ole Miss, but once again, they can't keep digging holes at the beginning of the game because one of these teams will beat them.
Oh, there's no doubt, especially when you start in the SEC conference. And I know it's going to be a tough couple of weeks for them coming up with all these back-to-back-to-back games. But I really thought it was going to be a deciding factor for me to understand what Ole Miss is about. Going to Kentucky this early in the year, sort of like last year, they were 4 games into it. Then they played a Kentucky game at home and blew that one. But I felt like making a statement. I really thought Lane Kiffin would have these guys going to make a statement. I really, after watching Kentucky play the first game of the season, I said, man, Ole Miss will go in there and steamroll them. They should be winning by 20 with no problems. But you got to play the football game. And Simmons has been struggling. And I knew this going into it. People, they praising him and doing this and doing that. Oh, that one great series against Georgia. I said, man, you don't know football. You don't know quarterback position. One series doesn't make a guy. I mean, great. He graduated early. I understand. I like the kid. He's got potentials. But I think he's trying to do a little too much. You know, he's got 2 games, 4 picks. That offense is moving the ball. I mean, you saw it, Steve. They should have had 45, 50 points against Kentucky. They dominated the game. Defense only gave up, was it 13, I believe it was, 23 points. That's still good giving it up, but they gave up that last field goal at the end, so Kentucky tried to get an onside kick. But there's something not gelling yet with the offense. It's moving the ball. It's like I said before, they're great from the 20 to the 20. They got to get in the end zone and score some touchdowns. It's not going to get any easier. Arkansas coming up this week, but look, you got away with a win in the SEC. You went to Kentucky. It's not an easy place to play. I've been there. I know all about it. They got to win. They're going to regroup. Lane has got to get these guys better prepared to what's coming ahead, because it's not going to be, cupcakes for here on out.
Yeah, I mean, you have Arkansas, and Tulane is not going to be an easy game. That especially right before LSU. The LSU game in Oxford is going to be absolutely massive. Listen, in my opinion, I did a video last week about how it was important for Lane to not necessarily coddle Austin Simmons, but just make the first quarter a little bit easier for him, because the scrimmage you went to, he struggled in.
Yes.
The home opener, he struggled in. At the very beginning, he regrouped and got on there. So it was a start thing. It wasn't necessarily a talent thing. There was enough of a sample size that the same thing would happen against an SEC defense that has a defensive coordinator that wants to confuse him. Odds are that was going to work.
Yeah, in respect to him, he's still learning. It's only 2 games. He started 2 games for the Ole Miss Rebels, okay? And it's this year. Are they trying to put too much on him? I don't think they're trying to put too much on him from Lane's side. I think Simmons, is putting a little bit too much on him. Just because they call a play, and it doesn't mean you have to complete the pass. You want to complete the pass, or you don't want to force it in. Things will go well. I've always told this when I was coaching and reading about these kids. Say, hey, look, live to play another down, live to play another series. If it's early in the game and you're still in the football game, then you got other series. Now, later in the game, you got to make things happen. Then you got to go all out, do things. But you can't start like he's starting, because if he does that against LSU, does it maybe against Arkansas, does it, against more qualified, a Tulane team, you could find yourselves being down. Now everything changes and say, wait, we're down 2 scores. It's early in the first half. We got a lot of time left, but what's my quarterback going to do? Is he going to keep forcing things, putting pressure on him? But I think what Lane has done now, the kid Lacey ran for about 138 yards, I believe it was. So that's good that you got a running game, because I wasn't sure about the running game. Lane might have to, just to take a little bit off Simmons by saying, hey, look, maybe we'll let you run a little bit and do some things. But eventually Simmons is going to have one of them 24-35 games for, 300-something yards to beat an LSU. It's going to come to that. He's got to, the understanding the part of the interceptions, 2 weeks, in a row, 2 picks each. So he's got to cut that down. And I think he's going to. It's just he's only played 2 games.
Yeah, he's going to be fine as a quarterback, in my opinion. The one thing that you saw in the Kentucky game, there was the bad snap where he had to drop his eyes off of the receiver and ended up throwing an interception there.
Yeah.
You could see he panicked a little bit. When he got the ball, he panicked. And that's just a youth thing. That's not knowing that you need to live to play another down.
Correct.
On the defensive side of the ball, Coach O, when he was at Ole Miss and I was the video coordinator there, he would always say, keep a dead play dead. And when a play is dead, you need to realize it's dead. That works for the offense as well. Whenever there's a mistake, just play it again. Don't make it worse.
Well, the rules have changed. Like when I played and you got a fumble snap and it's a pass play, say, you just can't go and throw the ball out of bounds. They throw a flag on you back when I played. It was intentional ground. They don't care about the rules. It's a pass line scrimmage. You can't do it. Nowadays, that's a problem. Just get out the pocket and throw it away. You don't have to complete every pass, which, he was 13-24, which is not bad. But I don't know an Ole Miss team throwing 24 times a game. Then usually Lane Kiffin wants to throw up in them 30s. But I think Lane realized, wait a minute, I got to take a little bit of pressure off the young man. Don't make mistakes by stupid mistakes, and I can prove that I've done that. Yeah, he is 13-24, 235. The yards is fine. 0 touchdowns. Can't play in the SEC and be a top quarterback throwing 24 times and not throwing a touchdown. You have to have touchdowns. It's going to come with him. He's got to get some more reps. He's got to get more game situation. Remember now, 4 quarters, the first game, 4 quarters. That's 8 quarters total. That's all the kid played in one drive against Georgia. Yeah, he played some spot plays early last year, clean up the mess that they've already beat the team so bad. Just go in there and look pretty for everybody. But Simmons is going to get better as time goes along, but he don't have time. What I mean by that, it's different. He's playing Murray State next week, or the week after that, he's playing, Illinois State or something like that. He's playing Arkansas, Tulane, LSU. I see how easy that's going to be. No, it's not. So if he just can take control of his game and realize, look, I don't have to make all the plays. I'm not here for that. I got good wide receivers. The line has played well enough. They run 2 consecutive games, over 100-something yards, and that's a plus for them offensively. So, defense has played well. So, you're going to be – I think it's going to be a difference. This team is different, okay, in this way. They're going to have to win these 30-23 games. They're going to have to win these, 27-24 games. They're going to have to win those close ball games. Maybe this is a good sign for him that he's playing close football games right now. But he's got to get to the point where, hey – Let's get an early lead in the first half, and then we can adjust our play calling in the second half.
Yeah, there was a couple of real positives that have emerged. After the slow start by Austin Simmons, we'll talk about this real quick before we take a break. The recognition that it went poorly, but then not letting it affect the last 3 quarters of the game. He kind of got it back together. The 4th and 1 pass that he threw to Trey Wallace, that turned the game. And It was the best pass of the season that he's made. So he's not letting the slow starts affect him, but we need to figure out a way to stop these slow starts. Well,
that's the thing about it is Lane got to here and said, look, we got a whole second half. It'd be different if you're in the 4th quarter and your quarterback's struggling. He played much better in the second half. The team, picked it up a little bit in the second half. Like I said, the last 3 quarters were really outstanding. They're going to have to build off of that, and I'm sure Lane's getting in the ears, hey, we got to go. This ain't no easy task against Arkansas. They can sneak up on us, so let's get things started early instead of waiting until later.
And we'll come back. We'll talk to John Fourcade about the offensive line, which had a pretty good game, and Lane Kiffin coaching probably one of his better games at Ole Miss in this game as far as finding a plan B and a plan C and getting on there. That's pretty good news to see. But first, I do want to tell you about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see what parts are on your doorsteps tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder, tools, and 3D schematics can also save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trademaster program today and score some serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com and sign up for using the promo code SHCollege5. That's all one word, SHCollege5, for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Listen, college football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game actually does itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and price jumping at checkout. That is why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And with Ole Miss having 4 consecutive home games, this would be an avenue for you. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple of taps. I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Also, do us a favor and like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing but keeps all of this free. And if you want more, join the Insiders program in the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. So give it a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. So, John, one thing that was interesting to me is the offensive line. They played a really good game. For as much maligned as they were the first couple of the weeks of the season online and through the internet, Ole Miss ran the ball every play but one in the fourth quarter. And when you do that to teams, that is because you know that for them to beat you, for them to score, for them to do anything, you have to screw up. So Ole Miss was just running out the clock.
Well, basically, that's what I thought when I watched. I was like, wow, they don't realize people bet on football games. And I was sitting there like, I had a -9, and I'm like, hey, come on, please, let's get it rolling. But I like what he was doing. It's one way to keep their offense off the field. If your offense is controlling the time of play, and you can go down the field and take your time and run it and run it and run it and run now. The thing is, when you're doing that, you got to at least get some points out of it. Field goals are great, but if you can get a touchdown, that adds up a lot better than having, 3 points instead of 7. That was something differently with Lane. But also he took some pressure off of Simmons by saying, look, we're dominated. Our offensive line has dominated this game in the second half. Let's just stick with the bread and butter. And that's what they did. Figured out, okay, we're just going to pound it and ground it and run the clock out. That's great, but I believe this, that when you get into some of these other games, you're going to have to throw the ball. Even though they were leading, I still sort of thought Lane could have worked on some of his, passing game, fake play action, throw the ball. It don't have to be down the field. It could be the tight end or running back to improve Simmons' understanding crucial time. What's going to happen when they get in the game in the fourth quarter and it's tight? You run, 15, 16 times in a row, and the quarterback, and I've been there. When you run it that many times, you realize, man, are they not trusting my throwing abilities or what's going on there? We throw the football so much, and then it gets in your head. All of a sudden, you don't throw a pass 15, 16 times during the game, and next thing you know, oh, we're going to throw a pass. Well, I haven't been, I wouldn't say you're not in a passing mood, but it affects your quarterback when you don't. I think every 4 or 5 plays, you might want to throw the ball. But in this case, you wanted to run the clock out. It's a smart strategy by what Lane was doing.
One thing that was interesting to me in this football game was the usage of Deuce Alexander at wide receiver. He was out in the route doing all the stuff that wide receiver is supposed to do, but you saw him in the backfield as well. They were moving him around, and that is beginning to make me wonder if going into Arkansas, if going into Tulane and LSU, his role is going to expand even further.
Well, when you start doing that, when you bring in a guy who's a wide receiver / in the backfield, you can do a lot of things out of the backfield with him, because now it helps the quarterback and Lane and his offensive coaches figure out what they're doing defense. Are they trying to cover this guy? Or they feel like we have to do something to change our defensive philosophy over one guy, which that's what Lane was trying to check out, see what they're in man, a certain zone. But if you got a good receiver, a good player like that, you can go ahead and move him around. And that's the smart thing. If you line up and you got a guy sitting there still, that's pretty easy to determine, but you're not determining the whole defense. You're just determining what one guy does. By moving him around, it makes your defense make some changes, and sometimes it'll mess the defense up, thinking that, oh, yeah, we're going to move around defensive-wise to mess the quarterback up. Sometimes when you're moving a receiver around or a running back around inside the box, outside the box, it'll tend to give the coaches the ability to say, okay, this is what they're doing when you do this. And that's smart strategy from Lane and his coaching staff.
Yeah, this is a game that last year Ole Miss lost. Ole Miss would have lost this game last year. And Austin Simmons and the whole team and everybody, they showed resiliency that they didn't have a year ago. Last year, it seemed like to me that, especially against LSU and against Florida, and then even the Kentucky game, when plan A didn't work, whenever the first quarter happened, there was no plan B. There was nothing they could go to outside of that to kind of change the story a little bit. It looks like this team could have that.
Well, last year, my take was the 3 games they lost, the Kentucky game, I was on Lane Kiffin. I'm sorry. Lane can sit right here in front of me, and I'll tell him I was at the game. I saw some things. That is not what you want to do. Throw the ball at one guy the whole time. Just air it. You could probably run the football better. Then when I went to the LSU game and I was there in person on the front row and having to watch this, I couldn't believe some of the play calling there. Yeah, Dart made a couple of decision makings, but he still played a good football game. And I thought that game again was coaching. And then they lose the Florida game on the road to Florida. Dart didn't play the best game of his life, but it wasn't enough that they wasn't winning. And that's another game that Lane had to learn from. So you just can't blame everything on your players. Some of the players go out there and do what they could possibly do. But in this situation, they had this schedule. I know Lane Kiffin had this schedule scratched on it in that calendar saying, hey, Kentucky, we're going to go there. I don't care what it takes. We got to beat them at their place like they did a year ago at our place to start the season off in the SEC Conference of Play. With all that being said, he got out of the game with a win. Probably could, like I said, he could have won by 20. You win by 7. You get out of there. You go home. You got to win. Nobody cares. 2 weeks from now, nobody will care about what the final score was in the Kentucky game. They're worried about now what's going to happen in Arkansas game. And then so he is preparing his team, saying, we might be a little different team. We don't have the Dart. They don't have Dart. Okay. Mm-hmm. They don't have those wide receivers. They don't have the star-studded team they had last year that probably should have been in the playoffs. This team right now has got to be one of the ones like, we're going to have to back into the playoffs because nobody's picking us and seeing us and thinking we that great. Maybe you're the underdogs and everything. Nobody, Ole Miss, they're just there. They just, Lane's going to win his 8 games and be happy and go to the Music City Bowl. Here's a possibility with them could sneak up on people and beat some people. Maybe they need to win the game like LSU did in overtime last year against Ole Miss and say, we at Ole Miss, we got to win these close ball games no matter what it takes. If we do go to overtime, what? And Lane's preparing these kids. Those guys now understand we got to play tough football games like it's no tomorrow.
Yeah, and Lane's doing a really great job coaching the team this year so far. We'll talk to John a little bit after we have this message from the game. All right, the game is, let's see, quick question for all of you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit in the front row It's your school's biggest rivalry. Which hat would you be wearing? Yeah, I said hat. For me, it'd be the game. Here we go. Just like this. These aren't just hats. They are the same vintage styles worn back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code Locked On, that's all one word, Locked On, you will get a vintage hat for $16.99. So head to thegamecaps.com. That is thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar cap like this, or the retro circle design that you've seen me wear on my show or on my morning walks. Use the code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. All right, so John, I thought this game was a big game for Lane Kiffin. I thought he coached a really good game. Knowing what he had, there was no panic when they went down by 10 points. You've seen Lane at times try to score a 14-point touchdown because of that panic. You saw him kick field goals. He played the game like the favorite that he was. And this is the evolution with Lane Kiffin that Ole Miss fans have been waiting for, if it continues.
Well, one thing I've noticed in the game when I was watching it was this, that in the past, this analytic you all heard about, for years we hear about the analytics tell me to do this, and that's BS. Okay, go back to playing football between when I was playing, prior to when I was playing, even after I was playing. They weren't using these analytic guys on the sideline. Analytic people, they work at Best Buys. They call it geek squads. They got their little computers. They sit around there, and that's all they do. And they go, let me try to help these coaches. And Lane had to get off of that. Getting points and playing defense is not a bad situation. If you can get some points and you put your defense back out there, and even if they were to hold them to 3 points, then you can go out there and say, okay, we're not out of the game. We're either tied or we're still in it. And that's what I think he did in this football game. He didn't panic when he was down by 10. And it's early in the game. He realized, okay, we got a good enough team. We know we can beat these guys. We have the better players, the better coaches, and that's what he did. He played 60 minutes. Instead of him trying to win it in 20, he played 60. And he realized that, let me go back to smart coaching. And if I get down there, I got to get points. It's different maybe if the first drive of the series, the first drive of the game, or whatever it may be, you want to go for something 4th and 1 at their 30. I'm fine with that. But when you get to the 15-yard line and you couldn't smack it in, and it's 4th and 3, and you want to try to go for it, are you dumb? You go kick a field goal, get the points. Because now you fought all the way down there, and you guys are like, wait a second, we got all the way down there. We had a chip shot field goal. We didn't take it. It's different if it's 4th and 1. But if anything past that's a little rough. But I think he did a really good job coaching this football game by keeping his players say, hey, look, guys, we're down 10. That's nothing in college football these days. If you watch that game, the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, they were down 15 points with less than 7 minutes left, and they had to get some miracle things happen, and you just never know. And they came back, and the Buffalo Bills beat the Baltimore Ravens. And what I'm saying with Ole Miss is, Lane, just keep the team in the game, and then you got a shot.
Yeah, I always call it like on a 4th and 3, doing the analytic 4th downs, not when you have a specific play or a feeling on what's going on and you have a 90% confidence thing that this would work. It's just, hey, it's 4th and 3, let's go for it. That's an analytic play, and I call it playing the slot machine, because the house usually wins, and occasionally you hit the jackpot on that, but it doesn't really do that much other than the fact that you're probably going to lose that. And in a game like Kentucky, you don't want to turn that place into a cauldron. You do not want to give them hope. And I think there's no other play in football that can jump the crowd, get them ready to go, have a nice bounce, than getting a 4th down stop by the defense. If Ole Miss went for a 4th down and Kentucky stopped them, it might as well just be a short field interception.
Well, if you're going to do some of this analytic stuff, I don't believe you're at the 15, 20-yard line on your side of the field and it's 4th and a yard, and you got, oh, yeah, we'll go for it. Are you nuts? I mean, because you're giving the ball over to a team, anybody could, in the SEC could score, okay? And now you're putting yourself either down 3 or down 7 or down 10 or whatever it may be. You don't need to do that. Down on their side of the field, you want to do some analytic stuff. I can understand that, because now if you don't score, they have to go 60, 70 yards, 80 yards. Whereas if you do it in your own side of the territory, and these guys that play, the guys who are on TV analyzing it, tell you, I would bet you majority of them never even snapped a play in their life, and they're reading books and they doing things, and oh man, why don't they try it on this? Let me put the computer, let me shoot it out. And no, you don't know. You might go for the guy's or a bad snap. Or, that's not in your analytics when you're drawing it up and you're printing it up, and the guy up top shooting it down to you because he got a lunch break at Best Buy, and I'm gonna shoot it over to Coach Lane and let him know what this play is. It doesn't work that way anymore. You got to play smart football. These coaches nowadays are too good on the defensive side of the football, and you don't know what happens. You might have a great play calling on 4th and 1 at your own 40-yard line. I'm going to go for it on 4th and 1, and the center don't snap the ball. Quarterback slips. They fumble it or something happens. You don't know that. First or second down, you can live to play a next down. But on 4th down, you don't have a 5th.
Yeah, it becomes risk and reward, and Lane he avoided all of that analytics stuff and just won the football game against Kentucky. It was really great to see. John, what do you got going on this week?
Well, it's just I have a charity golf event Wednesday. It's been for months now since the Zurich Open, and it's for the Kids Foundation, a Four Foundation. It's been going on for many, many, many years. Other than that, I got this weekend's game. I just talked to my buddy. I might take a trip up to Oxford, but then again, my nephew coaches at Central Arkansas. They're playing a team called Tarleton State, who beat Army a couple of weeks ago in overtime. It's a big game for them, so we might go to that game instead of the Arkansas game, but I will have the old TV available for me to watch. So I'm just going to chill back and relax. I'm in my retirement 2.0 mood now and just enjoying life. I'm going to try my second retirement, just enjoying myself.
All right, John. Thank you very much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
You got it, Steven. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Hotty toddy, man.
Hotty toddy.
All right, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up on that page. We're like 80% of that page. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. It helps out the show, and it is completely free. Your support means the world to us. It's another big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation along two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, coach, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. The college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.